What if I told you that the world of Middle-earth holds secrets older than the mountains of Mordor, deeper than the roots of the White Tree of Gondor? What if beneath the surface of orcs, wizards, and elves there lay echoes of forgotten myths, legends that stretch back to the dawn of human storytelling? Have you ever considered that Tolkien's creation might be less about invention and more about rediscovery? He wasn't just a writer, he was a master of myth. But his myths didn't emerge out of thin air. Instead, they were shaped and reshaped by ancient stories, some familiar, others hidden in the mist of time. Norse gods, Finnish heroes, Anglo-Saxon warriors, they all left their mark, and Tolkien brought them together in a world so rich and detailed that we sometimes forget where his inspiration began. You may have heard that Middle-earth is based on Midgard from Norse mythology, but that's just scratching the surface. Tolkien's world is like a vast ocean, and the deeper you dive, the more connections you'll find to ancient myths, both well-known and obscure. Tolkien was not just borrowing from mythology, he was reinventing it, combining it into something so cohesive, so deeply ingrained in the fabric of his universe that it feels timeless. But before we unravel these hidden threads, ask yourself, what makes Tolkien's world so captivating? Could it be that beneath all the evil rings and battles, there's something far older, more primal that resonates with us all? When people think of Norse mythology and Tolkien's work, they often picture the obvious. The names Gandalf, Thorin, Durin, all are names that appear in the Prose Edda, an ancient Norse text. But to stop at the names would be like looking at a tree and ignoring the forest around it. Tolkien's use of Norse mythology goes far deeper. Consider the very name Middle-earth. It might sound fantastical, but it's a direct translation of Midgard, the realm of humans in Norse mythology. In both worlds, Midgard or Middle-earth lies at the center, surrounded by realms of gods, giants, and creatures of immense power. But Tolkien didn't just translate a name, he built an entire cosmology. In his early writings, Middle-earth was flat, just like Midgard, encircled by a vast ocean. And just as in Norse mythology, when Midgard is transformed after the cataclysm of Ragnarok, Tolkien's world undergoes a monumental transformation after the fall of Numenor. The dwarves, too, are more than just characters borrowed from Norse myth. Tolkien took the idea of dwarves, short, bearded, skilled in mining and craftsmanship, and turned them into a rich culture. His dwarves are secretive and proud, known for their ability to craft magnificent things from the depths of the earth. This echoes the dwarves of Norse myth, who were legendary smiths and creators, forging wonders like Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. But Tolkien goes beyond the myths, creating entire histories and lineages for his dwarves, expanding on their society, their struggles, and their relationships with the other races. And then there's the matter of names. Thorin, Fili, Kili, Dwalin. These aren't just names Tolkien picked at random. They too come straight from the Prose Edda, where they're listed as the names of the first dwarves ever created. Even Gandalf's name comes from the same list, though Tolkien gave it to a wizard instead. But there's more to these names than meets the eye. Thorin Oakenshield, for example, carries a name that reflects both strength and nobility, hinting at his role as a leader and a warrior. And yet, in true mythological fashion, his story is tinged with tragedy and the burden of kingship. But why, you might wonder, my astute viewer, would Tolkien borrow so much from Norse mythology? Well, maybe it's because he understood that these ancient stories, with their themes of power, loss, and heroism, could speak to readers in a way that modern tales might not. Or perhaps he saw something in the sagas of the Norse gods and heroes that resonated with the world that he was trying to create. Norse mythology may get most of the attention, but it's not the only ancient tradition that Tolkien drew from. Hidden in the pages of his work are echoes of other mythologies, ones that most readers might miss entirely. Take, for instance, the Finnish Kalevala, for example, an epic that inspired one of Tolkien's most tragic characters, Turin Turambar. This Finnish tale is a collection of myths and legends, and it was here that Tolkien found the story of Kullervo, a tragic hero doomed by fate. The story is one of vengeance, loss, and a struggle against forces beyond his control, themes that would later find their way into the story of Turin. So, Turin is a man cursed by fate who battles against the darkness within and without, only to fight that he cannot escape his doom. Turin's story, like many of Tolkien's tales, is steeped in tragedy, echoing the fatalism found in many ancient myths. But Finnish mythology wasn't the only influence. Anglo-Saxon legend also played a major role in shaping Tolkien's world. In fact, one of Tolkien's most famous works, The Hobbit, was heavily influenced by the Old English epic Beowulf. The dragon, Smaug, who hoards gold and wreaks havoc on the land, is a direct descendant of the dragon in Beowulf. But while Beowulf's dragon is a symbol of greed and destruction, Tolkien's Smaug is more complex. A creature of intelligence and malice whose very presence shapes the world around him. Even classical mythology, with its gods and its heroes, sneaks into Tolkien's work. Characters like Aragorn, who takes on the mantle of a king despite his reluctance, echo the Greek concept of the reluctant hero, a figure who must rise to greatness despite his own personal doubts and fears. This blending of mythologies creates a world that feels both familiar and new, ancient and yet completely unique. He didn't borrow from just one mythic tradition, he drew from many, weaving them together into something that felt deeply rooted in the past, while still being his own creation. And yet, how many of these influences go unnoticed by readers? Tolkien was known for loving language and culture. What lesser-known mythologies do you think influenced his work the most? Let me know in the comments. If there's one object in Tolkien's legendarium that has captured the imagination of readers and viewers alike, it's the One Ring. A simple band of gold that holds the fate of Middle-earth in its grasp. The One Ring is way more than just a magical artifact or a trinket. It's a symbol of absolute power, and with that power comes corruption. But this idea didn't start with Tolkien. In fact, mythologies from around the world have long warned against the dangers of unchecked power. So in ancient Norse mythology, there's this ring, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce its name because it's just a little ridiculous. Anyway, it was forged by the dwarf Andvari. Now this ring brought wealth and fortune to its bearer, but like with Tolkien's ring, it was cursed AF. Andvari, upon losing his treasure to the trickster god Loki, laid a curse on the ring, declaring that it would bring doom and death to all who possessed it. Well, from that moment, the ring became a source of greed and destruction, much like the One Ring would centuries later. Tolkien's ring shares more than just a curse with its mythological predecessors. Its power to corrupt even the purest of hearts is a recurring theme in myth. The Greek tale of King Midas, who wished for the power to turn everything he touched into gold, is another such example. Like Midas, those who come into contact with the One Ring find themselves consumed by its power. The more they desire to control it, the more it controls them. Take Gollum, for instance. Once a hobbit-like creature named Smeagol, he's driven to murder his friend for a glimpse of the One Ring's power. Over time, the ring twists him, both physically and mentally, until the creature we meet in The Lord of the Rings is almost unrecognizable. Even Frodo, our stalwart hero, is not immune. As he journeys to destroy the ring, we see its growing influence over him, clouding his judgment and tempting him to keep it for himself. In the end, it's only through the intervention of chance, or perhaps fate, that the ring is finally destroyed. What makes the One Ring so powerful, both as a plot device and as a symbol, is that it reflects on ancient truth found in myth. Power, especially absolute power, corrupts. The desire to possess something so powerful often leads to one's downfall. Like the Ringwraiths, once great kings of men who are now bound to the will of Sauron, their former glory and humanity just lost forever. But why is the One Ring so irresistible? Is it simply the allure of power, or is there something deeper at play? Tolkien's world suggests that it's not just the power of the ring itself, but the way it plays upon the weaknesses of its bearer. It magnitudes greed, fear, and pride, traits that are all too human. And that's what makes it so dangerous. It's not just a tool of evil, it's a reflection of the darkness within. Every great story has a hero, but Tolkien's heroes aren't your typical champions. In many mythologies, heroes are larger than life. They slay monsters, they claim treasures, and they win kingdoms. But Tolkien's heroes are often reluctant, flawed, and vulnerable. In this way, Tolkien takes the classic mythological structure of the hero's journey and gives it a twist that resonates deeply with modern readers. Joseph Campbell's concept of the hero's journey, or the monomyth, outlines a common narrative arc found in many ancient myths and legends. The hero receives a call to adventure, often reluctantly, and must leave the ordinary world to enter a realm that's all danger and challenge. Along the way, the hero encounters mentors, faces trials, and ultimately achieves a victory that leads to a transformation. At first glance, Frodo Baggins fits neatly into this archetype. He's called to adventure by Gandalf and tasked with the seemingly impossible mission of destroying the One Ring. But what makes Frodo stand apart from traditional mythic heroes is his reluctance. He doesn't really seek adventure, it's kind of thrust upon him. Unlike Achilles, Beowulf, or Hercules, Frodo is not driven by a desire for glory or conquest. He is in many ways an ordinary person, a hobbit caught up in extraordinary circumstances. And this is where Tolkien diverges from the traditional hero narrative. In ancient myths, the hero often emerges victorious, changed but triumphant, haha! In contrast, Frodo's journey leaves him physically and emotionally scarred and, dare I say, broken. While he succeeds in destroying the ring, the cost is incredibly high. He's never the same again, haunted by the burden of his quest. This echoes the tragic heroes of old, figures like Oedipus or Gilgamesh, who are transformed by their trials, but not necessarily in ways that bring them peace or joy. Frodo's journey isn't the only one that reflects this unique take on the hero's journey. Aragorn too is a hero, but one who doubts his own worth. He's the heir to the throne of Gondor, but he spends much of his life in exile, hiding from his destiny. Like many mythic heroes, Aragorn must prove himself through trials and challenges, but his greatest battle is with his own self-doubt. In the end, his acceptance of his role as king is not just a victory for Gondor, but a personal transformation as well. And then there's Samwise Gamgee, perhaps the most unlikely hero of all. Sam's journey is one of loyalty and of courage, not for power or fame, but out of love and friendship. In many ways, Sam embodies the true spirit of the hero's journey. His transformation from humble gardener to brave companion is a testament to the strength of the human, or in this case, hobbit, spirit. His heroism lies not in great deeds, but in his unwavering commitment to Frodo, even when all hope seems lost. Tolkien's heroes are not defined by their strength or prowess in battle, but by their perseverance, their sacrifices, and their humanity. Sure, they're flawed, vulnerable, and often reluctant heroes who embody the complexities of the human condition. But, in his way, Tolkien gives the mythic hero's journey a modern, deeply emotional twist, one that resonates with readers on a personal level. The word doom carries a heavy weight in Tolkien's world, and it's no coincidence. In mythology, many heroes and gods are marked by an inescapable fate, a tragic destiny that they can't avoid no matter how hard they try. This sense of inevitable doom runs through The Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion, imbuing Tolkien's world with a sense of deep, mythic tragedy. Perhaps no character better embodies this idea than Turin, one of Tolkien's most tragic figures. Despite his heroic deeds, Turin is consistently pursued by misfortune, often brought about by his own choices. Like the tragic heroes of Greek mythology, such as Oedipus and Prometheus, Turin's fate is sealed by forces beyond his control, but it's also shaped by his own actions and his pride. Frodo, too, is marked by doom. Though he succeeds in his quest to destroy the One Ring, he's forever changed by the journey. The weight of the ring, the suffering he endures, and the toll it takes on his spirit are way too much for him to bear. In the end, Frodo doesn't find peace in Middle-earth. Instead, he must leave for the Undying Lands, seeking healing that the mortal world just can't offer. His departure is bittersweet, a reminder that even victory can carry the weight of sorrow. But this idea of doom's not limited just to individuals. The fall of Numenor, the decline of the elves, and the rise and fall of kingdoms all carry with them the shadows of doom. Just as in myth, where great cities like Troy or Atlantis are destined to fall, so too are the great civilizations of Middle-earth. These tragic cycles of rise and fall, of hope and despair, are woven into the very fabric of Tolkien's world. Tolkien understood the mythology is not just about triumphs and victories. It's also about loss, sacrifice, and the inescapable pull of fate. His characters are often caught between their desires and the larger forces at play in the world, forces that, no matter how hard they fight, they cannot fully control. Could it be that Tolkien is telling us something about the price of heroism and sacrifice? The idea of descending into darkness, both literal and metaphorical, is a powerful element in mythology. Whether it's the Greek underworld of Hades or the Norse Hell, these deep, foreboding places often symbolize death, danger, and transformation. In Tolkien's world, such underworlds are plentiful and carry a similar weight of mythic significance. Consider, for example, Khazad-dûm, the ancient dwarven kingdom known as Moria. When the Fellowship ventures into this vast, abandoned underground city, they're not just walking through halls of stone, they're descending into a mythic underworld. Much like Orpheus journeying into the depths of Hades to retrieve Eurydice, or Odysseus navigating the underworld in search of wisdom, the Fellowship's journey through Moria is fraught with peril and ancient curses. And like many mythic journeys, not all emerge unscathed. At the heart of this descent is the confrontation with the Balrog. Now, this is not just a powerful adversary, it's a creature of ancient evil, a shadow from a time before the world of men, elves, or dwarves. Its very presence in the depths of Moria calls to mind the monsters of myth, creatures like the Norse fire giant Surt, who fights a final battle in the flames of Ragnarok, or the Greek Chimera, whose defeat requires courage beyond measure. When Gandalf faces the Balrog, it's not just a battle, it's a mythic struggle, one that leads to Gandalf's own death and rebirth. His transformation from Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White echoes the mythic theme of death and resurrection, a common motif in stories from across numerous cultures. But the shadowy depths of the Mines of Moria are not the only underworld in Tolkien's legendarium. The Dead Marshes, where Frodo, Sam, and Gollum make their treacherous journey, carry a similar sense of foreboding. The faces of the dead that peer up through the waters evoke imagery of souls trapped between life and death, reminiscent of mythic underworlds where the spirits of the departed linger. Here, too, the living must navigate a landscape of death, where even the air itself is heavy with the weight of forgotten battles and lives lost. The underworlds in Tolkien's realms serve as more than just physical locations. They're all places of trials and transformation where characters confront not only external dangers, but also their own inner struggles. It's not just the Balrog that threatens the Fellowship. It's the overwhelming darkness and despair that creeps into their hearts as they journey deeper into the Dead Marshes. Frodo feels the pull of the ring growing stronger, its dark influence weighing on him more heavily with every step. In mythology, journeys into the underworld often represent a passage from ignorance to wisdom, from life to death and back again. For Tolkien's characters, these deep places serve a similar purpose. They're places where the characters are tested, where their strength, loyalty, and will are pushed to the absolute limit. But as in myth, these journeys are also moments of transformation. Gandalf's death is not an end but a beginning, a necessary trial that leads to his rebirth as a more powerful, enlightened figure. These mythic underworlds, then, are not just about descent. They're about what happens after. They're about rebirth, the transformation that follows. In this way, Tolkien mirrors the mythic traditions of countless cultures, reminding us that the darkest journeys often lead to the greatest transformations. Which makes me wonder, why does the underworld play such a vital role in mythic stories across cultures? And in Tolkien's work, what do these underworlds symbolize? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. What makes Tolkien's work timeless? Why, decades after their publication, do readers continue to return to Middle-earth? Perhaps it's because Tolkien didn't just tell a story, he created a mythology. And like all great mythologies, it resonates with something deep within us, something primal. Throughout Tolkien's work, there's a sense of history, of a world that stretches back into the mist of time. This is no accident. Tolkien understood the mythology gives a story weight, a sense of belonging to something greater. When we read about the fall of Numenor, we're not just reading about a fictional kingdom. We're reminded of the fall of Atlantis, of Troy, of countless civilizations throughout history that rose to greatness only to be consumed by their own hubris. This is one of the reasons that Tolkien's world feels so real, so lived in. His mythology isn't just a backdrop, it's the foundation upon which everything else is built. From the creation of the world to the Silmarillion to the final battle against Sauron in The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien's stories are infused with the rhythms and patterns of ancient myth. His world is one of cycles, of rise and fall, of creation and destruction, of good and evil and constant struggle. And in this way, Tolkien's mythology mirrors our own. But there's more to it than that. Tolkien's use of mythology isn't just about creating a rich, detailed world. It's also about tapping into universal themes: power, sacrifice, loss, and hope. These are the very same themes that have appeared in myths across cultures, from the Norse sagas to the Greek epics, from the Finnish stories to the Anglo-Saxon Beowulf. These are stories that speak to the human experience, that reminds us of our own struggles, of our own triumphs and our own failures. Tolkien's genius lies in his ability to take these mythic themes and weave them into a narrative that feels fresh and new, while still being deeply rooted in the past. His characters, from Frodo to Aragorn to Gandalf, are not just fantasy archetypes. They're echoes of the heroes and gods of ancient myth. Frodo's journey to destroy the One Ring is not unlike the journey of Aeneas to found Rome, or the trials of Hercules in his quest for redemption. Aragorn's reluctant rise to kingship echoes the stories of countless heroes who must accept their destiny despite their doubts. But perhaps the most powerful mythic theme in Tolkien's work is the idea of hope. In mythology, hope often comes at great cost through sacrifice and struggle. In the darkest moments, whether it's Frodo's final ascent to Mount Doom or Aragorn's stand at the Black Gate, there's always the possibility of hope, a light that shines through the darkness, however faint. This is a theme that runs through myths from every culture, from the Norse Ragnarok to the Christian story of redemption. And it's a theme that Tolkien returns to again and again in his work. He understood that mythology is more than just stories. It's a way of understanding the world, of making sense of the chaos and the beauty of existence. And by creating his own mythology, he gave us a world that feels as real and as timeless as the myths that inspired them. His work has been timeless, but why do you think his mythology resonates so strongly with readers even today? Is it the universal themes of hope, sacrifice, and struggle? Or is there something deeper at play? Something in the way his mythology mirrors our own stories and histories? So the next time you journey through Middle-earth, remember, you're not just exploring a fictional world. You're stepping into a mythology, one that stretches back through the ages, connecting us to the stories and legends that have shaped human history. And, in that sense, Tolkien's work isn't just a fantasy. It's a reflection of our own world, our own myths, and of our own struggles. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the mythology weaved into Tolkien's world and its mythic roots, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. Join us on this journey through Tolkien's greatest stories. There's so much more to uncover.